The cargo shuttle shook as it entered the thin atmosphere of the moon. Kang Tae-won gripped the armrests of his seat and watched through the small window as the surface came into view. Gray rocks stretched endlessly below him, broken only by deep craters and ancient dust. This was his new home. This was his punishment. The shuttle's computer spoke in a calm voice. Approaching Survey Station Omega-7. Landing in 5 minutes. Tae-won closed his eyes and tried not to think about Mars. Tried not to see the 3 habitat domes collapsing. Tried not to hear the screams. The investigation had cleared him. The accident wasn't his fault. A faulty sensor had given him wrong data about the underground pressure. But it didn't matter. 43 people died, and he was the chief engineer. His career was over. His reputation destroyed. When the colonial authority offered him this assignment, he took it without hesitation. Survey Station Omega-7, a forgotten outpost on a forgotten moon, orbiting a planet nobody cared about. Perfect. He wanted to be alone. He wanted to be far away from everything and everyone. The shuttle touched down gently. The engines powered down, and silence filled the cabin. Tae-won sat there for a moment, staring at nothing. Then he unbuckled his harness and stood up. His legs felt weak after the 3-week journey in cryosleep. He opened the cargo bay and looked outside. The outpost stood before him, and he froze. The briefing materials hadn't prepared him for this. The station wasn't just some metal building. It was beautiful. The structure rose from the moon's surface like a crystal flower. Translucent walls caught the light from the nearby gas giant and scattered it into 1,000 colors. Curved towers spiraled upward, connected by bridges that seemed too delicate to be real. This was Vrillan architecture. The aliens who built this had abandoned it 70 years ago, and nobody knew why. The human additions looked ugly in comparison. A gray prefabricated living module sat attached to the eastern wing like a tumor. Solar panels and communication dishes stuck out at awkward angles. A small greenhouse dome crouched near the landing pad. Everything humanity added looked temporary and cheap. Tae-won grabbed his bag and stepped onto the moon's surface. His boots crunched on the regolith. The gravity was light, about 60% of Earth normal. The sky above was black, filled with stars that never twinkled in the airless void. The gas giant hung on the horizon like a painting, its swirling clouds of blue and orange frozen in time. He walked toward the airlock. Each step kicked up small clouds of dust that fell back immediately. The silence was absolute. No wind, no sound, just his breathing inside his helmet. The airlock opened smoothly when he pressed the access panel. Inside, the lights flickered on automatically. The human systems were old but functional. He cycled through the airlock and felt the pressure equalize around him. When the inner door opened, he removed his helmet and took a breath. The air was stale and cold, but breathable. He was home. The living quarters were small and practical. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchen area with a food processor and storage for the supply drops that came every 6 months. A work area with computers and repair equipment. Everything was clean and organized, left behind by the last technician who served here 5 years ago. Tae-won dropped his bag on the bed and walked to the window. The view showed the alien portion of the station stretching away from the human module. The crystalline walls glowed faintly from within, powered by something the human scientists still didn't fully understand. The Vrillam had left their power systems running when they abandoned this place. He spent the rest of the day unpacking and familiarizing himself with the station systems. The computers contained detailed maps of the outpost, maintenance schedules, and instructions for the various tasks he was expected to perform. Check the life support systems daily. Monitor the power grid. Record any unusual readings from the alien sections. Send weekly reports back to Earth. Simple work. Mindless work. Perfect. That night, He ate a tasteless meal from the food processor and tried to sleep. But sleep wouldn't come. The silence was too heavy. On Mars, there had always been noise. Machinery humming. People talking. Life happening all around him. Here, there was nothing. He got out of bed and walked through the human module. His footsteps echoed in the empty corridors. He found himself at the door that led into the alien section of the station. A sign warned that the area was unstable and should only be entered with proper safety equipment. Taewon ignored the sign and opened the door. The alien corridors were wider than human ones, with ceilings that curved overhead like the inside of a shell. The walls glowed softly, providing just enough light to see by. His footsteps made no sound here. The alien material absorbed everything. He walked deeper into the station, following the maps in his memory. Room after room opened before him. Some were empty. Others contained equipment the human scientist had tagged and cataloged, but didn't understand. Strange devices that might have been computers or art or something else entirely. The villain had been tall, according to the xenobiologists. Over 2 meters on average, with 4 arms and large eyes adapted for low light. They had built an empire spanning dozens of star systems. Then, 70 years ago, they vanished. Every Vrillan facility went silent at the same time. No bodies, no signs of struggle. Just empty buildings and running machines. Some scientists thought they had ascended to a higher plane of existence. Others believed they were wiped out by some unknown catastrophe. The colonial authority didn't care much either way. They just wanted to study the technology and see what could be salvaged. Taewon stood in what might have been a command center. Curved consoles lined the walls, their surfaces smooth and dark. He touched one gently, and it flickered to life under his fingers. Alien symbols scrolled across the screen, meaningless to him. "What happened to you?" he whispered to the empty room. "Why did you leave?" The console didn't answer. The symbols continued their endless scroll. He returned to his quarters late, exhausted but still unable to sleep. He lay in bed and stared at the ceiling, thinking about the people who used to live here, thinking about the people who died on Mars, thinking about his own life and how he had ended up in this strange place. The weeks passed, slowly. Taewon fell into a routine. Wake up, check the systems, eat, explore the alien sections, document anything interesting, send his reports, eat, sleep, repeat. He stopped shaving, stopped caring about his appearance. What was the point? Nobody would see him for months. The supply shuttle wasn't due for another 23 weeks. The loneliness pressed down on him like a physical weight. Sometimes he talked to himself just to hear a human voice. Sometimes he left video messages for nobody, recording his thoughts and feelings, then deleting them. 3 months into his assignment, a dust storm hit the moon. It lasted for 2 days, covering everything in a fine layer of particles. When it passed, Taewon suited up and went outside to check for damage. The Eastern Wing's power relay had been knocked loose. He could fix it easily enough. He gathered his tools and headed that direction, following the exterior wall of the station. That's when he noticed something strange. A section of the wall that should have been solid looked different. The dust had settled in a pattern that revealed a seam, almost invisible, but definitely their .T-1 stopped and stared. According to the maps, there was nothing here, just a solid wall. He pressed his gloved hand against the seam. The wall vibrated slightly under his touch. Something was behind there. Something that wasn't on any map. His heart began to beat faster. For the first time in months, he felt something other than emptiness. He had found something new. Taewon stood outside the hidden seam for a long time, his mind racing. He should report this. Follow protocol. Send a message back to Earth and wait for instructions. That's what the rules said, but Earth was 4 light hours away. Any message would take 8 hours for a response. And what would they tell him? Probably to wait. To do nothing until they sent a team. That could take months. He made his decision. He would open it himself. Back in his workshop, he gathered the tools he needed. A portable scanner, a cutting torch, a pry bar. He returned to the hidden seam and got to work. The scanner showed a hollow space beyond the wall, roughly 4 meters deep and 6 meters wide. No atmosphere inside. No heat signatures. Just an empty chamber that nobody knew about. He positioned the cutting torch carefully and began to cut. The alien material resisted at first, then suddenly gave way. The seam opened like a mouth, revealing darkness beyond. Tae-Won turned on his helmet light and stepped inside. The chamber was circular, with walls that curved smoothly into the ceiling. In the center stood a single structure, roughly rectangular, made of the same crystalline material as the rest of the station. It hummed with power, vibrating so faintly he could barely feel it through his boots. As he approached, panels along its surface lit up with alien text. Tae-Won recognized some of the symbols from the command center. The Vrillon written language used a combination of geometric shapes and flowing lines. Beautiful but unreadable. Then he saw something that made his blood run cold. Below the alien text, scratched crudely into the crystal, were words in Korean. Dr. Han Ji-won, Xenarchaeologist, Earth Colonial Science Division. Date of entry, June 14, 2179. 8 years ago. Tae-Won moved around the structure, his heart pounding. It wasn't just a monument or a storage device. It was a stasis pod. And through the semi-transparent crystal, he could see her. A woman floated inside, suspended in clear gel. Her eyes were closed. Her long black hair drifted around her face like seaweed in water. She wore a Colonial Science Division uniform, faded and old-fashioned by current standards. She looked peaceful, asleep. But the display panel next to the pod showed readings that made his hands shake. Heartbeat, steady. Brain activity, normal. Body temperature, regulated. She was alive. Tae-Won stepped back, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. How was this possible? The station had been surveyed multiple times. How had nobody found her? And why was she here? What had happened 8 years ago? He knew he should contact Earth immediately. This changed everything. But something made him hesitate. If he reported this, they would tell him to wait, to do nothing. And she would stay trapped in that pod for weeks or months while bureaucrats argued about protocol. He looked at her face through the crystal. She seemed young, maybe 30 when she went into stasis. That would make her his age now if time had passed for her. But it hadn't. She was still 30, suspended at the moment she entered the pod. What if something was wrong? What if the stasis system was failing? What if she was in pain and couldn't wake up? He made another decision that broke the rules. He touched the control panel. The alien symbols rearranged themselves, responding to his touch. A menu appeared, and miracle of miracles, one option had been labeled in Korean. Someone had added a translation, emergency revival sequence. Tae-Won pressed it. The pod's hum increased to a high whine. The gel inside began to drain away, flowing out through hidden channels in the base. The woman's body slowly descended until she rested on a platform inside the pod. The crystal walls retracted, folding away into the sides. She lay there, still and silent. Then she coughed. Her eyes opened. She tried to sit up, gasped, and fell back. Tae-Won reached out instinctively to help her, but she flinched away from his touch, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. "It's okay," he said, holding up his hands. "I'm human. I'm from Earth. You're safe." She stared at him, her chest heaving. She tried to speak, but only a rough whisper came out. "Water." Taewon grabbed his emergency canteen and helped her drink. She took small sips, her hands shaking. After a moment, she tried again. "Who are you?" "Kang Taewon. I'm the station technician." "I found you." "Station technician?" She looked around the chamber, confused. "Where's my team? Where's everyone else?" "There's nobody else here. Just me. I've been here for 3 months alone. That's not possible." She tried to sit up again, more successfully this time. "We came here with 8 people. Commander Park had 5 soldiers. There was Young Soo Bin, Lee Hyun Woo, Choi Hana, and me." "Where are they?" Taewon felt a chill run down his spine. "When did you arrive here?" "I don't know exactly. Maybe a week ago? We were studying the alien archive we found, and then—" She trailed off, her face going pale. "Park, he pulled a gun. He was talking to someone on a private channel. He said something about selling the information. Soo Bin tried to stop him, and he shot her. Her hands went to her face. He killed them. He killed all of them. I ran. I hid in here and activated the pod because it was the only place I thought he couldn't reach me." "How long do you think you were in stasis?" Taewon asked gently. "A day? Maybe 2? "Dr. Han," he said carefully, "you entered that pod on June 14th, 2179. Today is October 8th, 2187. You've been in stasis for 8 years." The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Then she turned to the side and vomited onto the floor. Taewon waited while she processed this. He found a cloth in his equipment pack and handed it to her. She wiped her mouth, her hands still shaking. 8 years, she whispered. "Everyone I know. 8 years older. My parents. My friends. I'm sorry." She looked up at him with red eyes. "Park, Commander Park Dong-hyun. Did they catch him? Did he pay for what he did?" Taewon shook his head. "I don't know. There's nothing in the station records about any of this. No reports of a research team. No mention of deaths. Nothing. He covered it up." A voice turned hard. "He must have took the bodies, cleaned up the evidence, made it look like nothing happened." "The archive you mentioned," Taewon said. "Where is it?" She pointed to a wall panel. "Behind there. We found it by accident. The Vrillen left behind their knowledge. All of it. Everything they knew about technology, science, culture. And something else. Something Park wanted to sell to the highest bidder." "What?" "The location of the Nexus. The gateway to the Vrillen network. Whoever controls it controls access to technology that makes everything humanity has look like stone tools." She stood up unsteadily. "We have to protect it. If Park sold that information, if some corporation got it, they'll come back. They'll take it all. Can you access the archive?" "Can you show me?" Ji-won nodded. She walked to the wall panel on shaky legs and pressed her hand against it. The panel slid aside, revealing a space filled with glowing crystals arranged in geometric patterns. Information flowed through them like light through fiber optics. "This is just the interface," she explained. "The real archive is distributed throughout the station. Maybe throughout the entire moon." The Vrillen didn't store data in one place. They wove it into the structure itself. She touched one of the crystals and it pulsed brighter. The walls around them came alive with projections. Images of tall, four-armed beings moving through the station. Data streams flowing past too fast to read. Star maps showing trade routes that connected dozens of worlds. "They didn't die," Ji-won said quietly. "They transcended. They found a way to upload their consciousness into a digital network. They left these archives for whoever came after them. A gift. Or maybe a test." Taewon stared at the projections, overwhelmed. "Why hide it behind a wall? Why make it so hard to find? Because they knew. They knew other species would come. Some would be ready for this knowledge. Others would use it to destroy themselves or others. The station itself is designed to judge whoever finds it. And we passed? G1 turned to look at him. You did. You saved me instead of reporting to your superiors first. You chose compassion over protocol. That means something to the Vrillon systems. A new projection appeared, brighter than the others. Text in Korean materialized in the air. Warning. Corporate vessel approaching Kepler 442 system. ETA. 14 standard days. Intent. Acquisition of Vrillon technology. Threat level. Extreme. They both stared at the message. Park sold them the location, G1 said. They're coming. Tae-won felt his stomach drop. 14 days. What do we do? She looked at him, and he saw the fear in her eyes matched by determination. We figure out how to use this station to stop them. Because if they get this technology, they won't just exploit it. They'll use it to control everything. 2 people against a corporate army? 2 people with an entire alien station at their disposal. She managed a weak smile. I've been trained for this. Zen archaeology isn't just about studying dead cultures. It's about understanding them well enough to use what they left behind. I'm just an engineer. Engineers solve problems. That's what we need. Tae-won looked at the countdown projected on the wall. 14 days. He thought about running, about taking the emergency shuttle and getting far away. But where would he go? Back to Earth and a ruined reputation? To another lonely outpost? No, he was tired of running. All right, he said. Show me everything. Let's figure out what this station can do. G1 nodded and turned back to the archive. As her hands moved, the next 3 days passed in a blur of work and discovery. G1 was weak from 8 years in stasis, but she refused to rest. She spent every waking hour at the archive interface, pulling up files and translating what she could. Tae-won worked beside her, trying to understand the alien technology well enough to use it. They learned quickly. The Vrillon had designed their systems to be intuitive. Once you understood the basic principles, the technology almost taught itself. Still, there was so much they didn't know. So much they might never have time to learn. On the 4th day, G1's hands started shaking. She tried to hide it, but Tae-won noticed. You need to rest, he said. We don't have time. You're no good to anyone if you collapse. He gently took her hands away from the interface. Please, just a few hours. I can keep studying. She wanted to argue, but her body betrayed her. Her legs buckled, and he caught her, helping her to the medical bay in the human quarters. She fell asleep the moment her head touched the pillow. Tae-won returned to the archive alone. He pulled up the file G1 had been working on before she collapsed. It was a personal log, recorded by a Vrillon named something that translated roughly as Keeper of Memories. The translated text scrolled across the screen. We are the last. The Krev hunt us across the stars, destroying our stations, killing our people. They fear what we have become. They fear that we will share our transcendence with others. We have decided to abandon physical form. It is not death. It is transformation. We will leave our knowledge behind for those who come after. Let them judge themselves worthy or not. Tae-won read the entry 3 times. The Krev, G1 had mentioned them briefly, but they hadn't had time to research them fully. Now he understood why the Vrillon had hidden the archive, why they had made the station a proving ground. They weren't just protecting technology. They were protecting younger species from a threat. He heard footsteps behind him. G1 stood in the doorway, wrapped in a blanket. Her hair was messy, and her eyes still heavy with sleep. I told you to rest, he said. I slept for 5 hours. That's enough. She moved to stand beside him. You found the Keeper's last entry. You knew about this? I suspected. The Vrillon left clues throughout the archive. They were running from something. She gestured at the screen. The Krev are old. Older than the Vrillon. They believe they're the rightful heirs to the galaxy. Any species that approaches their level of development gets wiped out. Then why hide the technology? Why not destroy it so nobody could find it? Because that would be letting the Krev win. The Vrillon believed in progress. In growth. They wanted to give other species a chance, but only if they proved themselves ready for it. She paused. That's what this station is. It's a test, and Park failed it. Spectacularly. The station detected his intentions immediately. That's why the archive sealed itself. That's why it didn't open for him no matter what he tried. She looked at Tae-Won. But it opened for you. He felt uncomfortable under her gaze. I just did what anyone would do. No, you did what a good person would do. There's a difference. She turned back to the interface. The station has been evaluating you since you arrived. Every action. Every choice. That's why you found the hidden chamber. It wanted you to find me. The station wanted? You make it sound alive. In a way, it is. The Vrillon uploaded fragments of their consciousness into their systems. Not enough to be individual people, but enough to make decisions. To judge. To guide. She pulled up a new file. This is what I was working on before. The station's defense systems. Diagrams filled the air around them. Weapon platforms. Shield generators. Power conduits running through every wall and floor. The entire structure was designed for protection. Can we activate them? Tae-Won asked. That's the problem. The systems require a human consciousness to interface with them directly. Someone has to connect to the Vrillon network and operate the defenses manually. How dangerous is that? Ji-Won hesitated. The Vrillon were designed to handle neural data transfer. Humans aren't. Connecting to the network could cause brain damage, seizures, permanent neural degradation. Or it could work perfectly fine. There's no way to know until someone tries. Then I'll do it, Tae-Won said immediately. No, why not? You're the Zen archaeologist. You understand this technology better than I do. We need you conscious and working. I'm just the engineer. You're not just anything. Her voice was sharp. And I'm not letting you sacrifice yourself. Someone has to. Maybe nobody has to. Maybe we can find another way. But even as she said it, she didn't sound convinced. They worked in tense silence for the next hour, searching through the archive for alternatives. But the Vrillon had designed their systems with specific requirements. Powerful artificial intelligence couldn't be trusted with weapons. Remote operation was too slow. Only a living consciousness, connected directly to the network, could react fast enough to defend against a military assault. The deadline was growing closer. 10 days remaining. On day 6, they detected an encrypted signal coming from outside the station. Someone was trying to hack into their systems. The attempt was clumsy and easily blocked, but it meant the corporate ships were already in range. They're early, Ji-Won said, her face pale. The warning said 14 days. They must have been closer than the station detected. Tae-Won pulled up the external sensors. 3 ships appeared on the display, approaching from different angles. Military vessels, heavily armed. We're out of time. Ji-Won stared at the ships. If they land, they'll bring soldiers, weapons. We can't fight them conventionally. Then we activate the defenses now. Both of us. She turned to him. Both? You said one person might get brain damage. What if we split the load? Connect 2 consciousnesses to the network instead of 1. Share the strain. That's never been tested. It might not even be possible. Do we have a better option? She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. They both knew the answer. The interface chamber was deep in the alien section of the station. 2 chairs rose from the floor when they entered, molding themselves to human proportions. Crystal tendrils extended from the walls, ending in delicate points that glowed with soft blue light. "We put these against our temples," G1 explained. "They'll create a neural bridge. Once we're connected, we should be able to feel each other's thoughts. And we'll feel the station systems like they're extensions of our own bodies." Should? Zen archaeology isn't an exact science. They sat in the chairs. Taewon's heart was beating so hard, he could feel it in his throat. The tendrils moved closer, hovering inches from his skin. "If this goes wrong," he said, "if I start seizing or bleeding from the eyes or something, disconnect me immediately. Same to you. On 3? G1 nodded. 1, 2, 3. They pressed the tendrils against their temples simultaneously. Pain exploded through Taewon's skull. He tried to scream, but couldn't make a sound. His vision went white, then black, then filled with colors that didn't exist. He felt his consciousness expanding, stretching beyond his body into something vast and incomprehensible. Then, suddenly, the pain stopped. He could feel everything. The power flowing through the station's conduits. The sensors monitoring the approaching ships. The weapons platforms buried beneath the moon's surface. It was overwhelming and beautiful and terrifying all at once, and he could feel. G-1. Her thoughts touched his like ripples on water. He felt her fear and determination. Her grief for her lost team members. Her anger at Park for what he had done. Her hope that they could stop the corporate ships. And beneath it all, a deep loneliness that matched his own. She felt him too. He knew she did. She felt his guilt about Mars, his shame at running away, his desperate need to find purpose again, his fear that he wasn't good enough, smart enough, strong enough for what they needed to do. Words formed between them, not spoken, but shared. G1's voice in his mind, "I'm here." His response, "I'm here too." Together, they turned their attention outward. The approaching ships became clear in their shared consciousness. 3 corporate military vessels. The flagship was larger than the others, bristling with weapons. On board were 50 soldiers, 12 scientists, and 1 man whose biosignature the station recognized. Commander Park. Dong-Hyan. G1's anger flared through their connection. Taewon felt it like fire in his veins. But he also felt her control, her training. She wouldn't let emotion cloud their judgment. "What do we do?" he thought. "We defend," she answered. "We show them this place is protected. We make them understand they can't just take what they want." The station responded to their will. Deep beneath the surface, ancient machinery came to life for the first time in 70 years. Power levels spiked. Defensive shields shimmered into existence around the moon. Weapon platforms rose from their hidden silos, their barrels tracking the approaching ships. The corporate vessels detected the changes immediately. Their communications lit up with panicked chatter. They hadn't expected the station to be active. They certainly hadn't expected it to be armed. A signal came through, audio only. Park's voice, older now but still recognizable. "Attention Survey Station Omega-7. This is Commander Park Dong-Hyan of the Quantum Reach Security Force. Power down your systems and surrender control of the facility. If you comply, no one will be harmed." Through their connection, Taewon felt G1's response before she. The corporate ships split up, approaching from 3 different vectors. A standard military tactic. They were trying to divide the station's defensive fire. Through their shared connection to the station, Taewon and G1 watched the ships move into position. The weapons platforms tracked them automatically, waiting for the command to fire. "We don't want to kill them," G1 thought. "Agreed," Taewon responded. but we need to stop them. They dove deeper into the station systems, exploring what the Vrillon had left behind. The weapons weren't designed to destroy. They were designed to disable. Electromagnetic pulse cannons that could fry ship electronics. Tractor beams that could hold vessels in place. Gravity mines that would trap anything that came too close. Non-lethal. Perfect. The flagship opened fire first. Missiles streaked across the void. 20 of them in a spread pattern designed to overwhelm point defenses. Through the station's sensors, they looked like bright flowers blooming against the black dot. T1 and G1 responded as one. The defensive shields flared, absorbing the first wave of missiles harmlessly. Energy weapons fired from the platforms, precise and controlled. Each beam struck a missile's propulsion system, causing them to tumble off course and detonate safely in empty space. Warning shot. G1 broadcast on all frequencies. The next attack will target your ships directly. Park's response was immediate. All vessels, weapons free. Disable that station. The 3 ships opened up with everything they had. Kinetic rounds, energy weapons, more missiles. It was an overwhelming assault, the kind that would pulverize a normal installation. But Omega-7 wasn't normal. T1 felt the defensive systems respond like his own reflexes. The shields absorbed and redirected the energy weapons. The kinetic rounds were caught by localized gravity fields and flung harmlessly into space. The missiles were disabled one by one before they could detonate, and then they struck back. Electromagnetic pulses lanced out from the weapon platforms, invisible but devastating. The first ship's lights went dark. Its engines died. It began to drift, pulled slowly by the moon's gravity. The second ship tried to retreat, but gravity mines activated around it, creating a bubble of distorted space-time. The ship couldn't move forward or back. It was trapped like an insect in amber. The flagship was larger and better shielded. Park must have invested in military-grade protection. The electromagnetic pulse wasn't enough to disable it completely. We need more power, T1 thought. G1 dove into the station's core systems. She found reserves the human technicians had never detected. Ancient Vrillon power cells, still full of energy after 70 years. She began routing power to the weapons dot. The flagship launched escape pods. Dozens of them, carrying soldiers in combat armor. They were going to land on the moon's surface and attack the station directly. Non-lethal solutions, G1 reminded him. Feeling his anger spike, I know. They targeted the pods with tractor beams, catching them one by one. The soldiers inside couldn't do anything as their pods were gently placed far from the station, on the opposite side of the moon where they couldn't cause trouble. The flagship made one last desperate move. It fired a heavy mass driver round directly at the station's human quarters. Park was trying to kill them, even if it meant destroying the technology he wanted. Time seemed to slow. T1 felt every millisecond as the round approached. It was too fast for the tractor beams. The shields could stop it, but the impact would still cause damage. So he did something the Vrillon designers probably never imagined. He used the gravity systems like a bat and hit the round back. The projectile reversed course, accelerating even faster than it had been fired. It struck the flagship's bridge dead center, punching through the armored hull and out the other side. Alarms screamed through the ship. Emergency protocols activated, sealing the breach. Park's voice came through again, shaken. Cease fire. All ships, cease fire. The battle stopped. 3 corporate vessels floated dead or trapped in space. Soldiers sat in escape pods on the far side of the moon. Nobody had died, but the message was clear. Omega-7 could not be taken by force. Leave, G1 broadcast. Repair your ships and leave this system. Tell your corporate masters that this station is under protection. You don't understand, Park said. His voice sounded old and tired. This was never just about us. When I sold the information about this place, I didn't just tell Quantum Reach. I told everyone who would pay. We're not the only ones coming. Ice filled to one's veins. What do you mean? I mean there are 6 more fleets on their way here. Corporate, government, even independent mercenaries. Everyone wants what's in that station. You can't fight them all. Before G1 could respond, every alarm in the station went off at once. A massive gravity distortion appeared at the edge of the system. Something was arriving. Something big dot through the sensors. They watched the ship materialize from hyperspace. But it wasn't human. It was enormous, easily 5 times the size of the flagship. Its hull was black and segmented, like an insect's carapace. Strange symbols glowed along its surface in colors that hurt to look at. Krev, G1 whispered in their shared consciousness. The alien ship broadcast on all frequencies. The message was in multiple languages, including Korean. Attention primitive species. This facility contains technology restricted by the Galactic Heritage Accords. All vessels will depart immediately. Any attempt to access or remove Vrillon technology will result in immediate termination. The corporate ships began powering up what systems they still had, trying desperately to escape. But the Krev ship moved with impossible speed. Energy beams lanced down, not at the ships, but at the moon itself. The surface around the station began to glow red as the alien weapons heated the rock. They're going to destroy everything, Tae-1 realized. They're going to melt the moon to prevent anyone from getting the technology. Then we need to talk to them, G1 said. We need to prove we have the right to be here. How? The inheritance protocols. The Vrillon left rules for this. Any species that can activate and defend a proving ground earns the right to join the galactic community. Through their connection, they pulled up the ancient documents from the archive. The protocols were clear. They had activated the station. They had defended it. Now, they needed to invoke their rights. But broadcasting to the Krev was only half the plan. G1 had another idea. They could use the Vrillon communication systems to send a message across all of human space simultaneously. Let everyone know what was happening here. Make this public. Tae-1 understood immediately. If this was kept secret, the corporations would cover it up. But if millions of people knew about it, there would be no hiding it. They activated every communication system in the station. Human frequencies, alien frequencies, emergency broadcasts that couldn't be blocked or ignored. And they spoke with one voice. This is Survey Station Omega-7 on Kepler 442b's primary moon. We invoke the Vrillon inheritance protocols. Humanity claims this station and the knowledge it contains by right of activation and defense. To the Krev ship, they added, we are aware of the Galactic Heritage Accords. We have defended this installation against hostile forces. We have proven ourselves according to the Vrillon standards. We request recognition under Article 7 of the Accords. The Krev ship stopped firing. Silence stretched across the void. Tae-1 felt G1's tension through their connection. Had they made a mistake? Would the Krev accept their claim? Finally, a response came. The alien voice was harsh, with strange harmonics that suggested it came from a throat very different from human ones. You invoke ancient protocols. This is unexpected. Verification required. Holographic projectors activated around the station. The Krev ship was scanning them, examining every detail. Through the sensors, they could see smaller craft launching from the massive vessel approaching the moon. Do not resist, the Krev voice commanded. Inspection teams will verify your claim. 4 smaller craft landed near the station. Beings emerged, and through the external cameras, Tae-1 and G1 got their first look at the Krev. They were insectoid, as the reports had said. eight-limbed, with dark exoskeletons that reflected light in rainbow patterns. Multiple eyes clustered on their head analogs. They moved with mechanical precision. The Krev entered the station. Through the sensor network, T1 and G1 watched them examine everything. The activated systems, the weapons that had disabled the corporate ships, the archive itself. One of the Krev approached the interface chamber where their bodies still sat, connected to the network. It studied them for a long moment with unreadable alien eyes. Then it spoke, its words translated by the station systems. Two consciousnesses, operating in harmony, sharing the neural load. Clever. The Vrillen would approve. The Krev team departed. Their ships returned to the massive vessel. T1 and G1 waited, barely breathing in their shared consciousness. The alien voice returned, broadcast across all frequencies again. The claim is verified. Humans of Earth have successfully activated and defended a Vrillen proving ground. Under the Galactic Heritage Accords, Article 7, Section 3, they are granted provisional access to Vrillen technology and invited to join the galactic community. A pause. Then, however, humanity is young, unproven beyond this single act. A test will be administered in one standard cycle. Success will grant. The medical bay was full of people. Doctors from Earth examined T1 and G1 for hours, running scans and asking questions. Neural activity was normal. No signs of damage. It was a miracle, they said. The human brain wasn't designed to interface with alien technology, yet somehow these two had managed it without permanent harm. What the doctors didn't understand was the connection. Even after disconnecting from the network, T1 could still feel G1's presence at the edge of his consciousness. Not her thoughts exactly, but her emotions, her state of being. He knew when she was tired or stressed or thinking hard about a problem. And she could feel him the same way. They didn't tell anyone about it. It seemed too personal, too strange. Military officers wanted debriefings. Scientists wanted access to the archive. Politicians wanted to know what humanity had just agreed to. Everyone wanted something from them. 5 days after the confrontation, Earth's colonial authority made them an offer. Joint directors of the Omega Project. Unlimited funding. Full access to resources. The mission: study the Vrillen technology and prepare humanity for the Krev test. They would be famous, powerful. Every decision they made would affect billions of people. T-1 sat in his quarters, staring at the contract on his tablet. It was everything he thought he wanted. Recognition, redemption, a chance to prove himself. Again. But something felt wrong. G1 knocked on his door. He didn't need to ask who it was. He could feel her there. Come in. She entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee from the mess hall. Real coffee, shipped from Earth at enormous expense. She handed him one and sat down across from him. You haven't signed, she said. Neither have you. They sipped their coffee in silence. Outside the window, construction crews were arriving. Earth was already building additional facilities on the moon. Permanent staff would arrive within the month. The Outpost was becoming a city. I keep thinking about what the Vrillen left behind, G1 said finally. Not the technology. The message. They wanted us to prove ourselves. To show we were ready. We did that. We defended the station. Did we? Or did we just get lucky? She set down her cup. Think about it. We barely held off 3 corporate ships. What happens when the test comes? What if it's something we can't handle? T1 understood what she wasn't saying. You think we need to do more. I think we need to change how humanity approaches this. Right now, everyone sees the Vrillen archive as a treasure chest. Technology to exploit. Weapons to study. But that's not what the Vrillen wanted. What did they want? They wanted to teach, to guide, to help younger species grow. She leaned forward. The test won't be about technology. It will be about wisdom, understanding, character. And humanity isn't ready for that. So what do we do? G1 pulled up a file on her tablet and showed it to him. It was a proposal. Detailed, comprehensive. Not a research facility, but a school. A place where people could come to learn not just about alien technology, but about thinking differently. About cooperation and sacrifice and seeing beyond immediate gain. The Horizon Academy. Taewon read. You want to train people? I want to give humanity a chance. The real kind. Not just cramming for a test, but actually becoming the kind of species the galaxy needs. She paused. But I can't do it alone. I need someone who understands sacrifice. Someone who knows what it means to fail and keep going anyway. Taewon looked at her. Through their connection, he felt what she wasn't saying out loud. She needed him. Not as a colleague. Not as a tool. As a partner. Someone she trusted completely. If we do this, he said slowly, we give up the recognition. The status. We'll be teachers instead of directors. Nobody will remember our names. I think I'm okay with that. Are you? He thought about Mars, about the 43 people who died, about the years he spent running from his past, about the empty months alone on this station before. G1 changed everything. He thought about the Vrillen and their message, about species proving themselves worthy. Yes, he said. I'm okay with that. They both declined the colonial authorities' offer. The politicians were furious. The military was confused. But they couldn't force Taewon and G1 to accept. They were still the only two people who had successfully interfaced with the Vrillen network. That gave them power, whether they wanted it or not. Instead, they negotiated. Omega-7 would remain under independent control. The human facilities could expand, but the alien sections belonged to the Academy. Students would be selected not by wealth or connections, but by aptitude and character. The goal wasn't to create an elite class, but to raise humanity's baseline. The first class was small. 20 students from 12 different countries. A mix of scientists, engineers, teachers, and artists. G1 had been insistent on the artists. We need people who can think creatively, she said. Who can see possibilities others miss. Among the first students was Shin Nari, a pilot from Korea with a gift for spatial reasoning. Kim Sam-min, a medic who had volunteered in 3 war zones. Bae Yoonji, a physicist whose papers on quantum mechanics had revolutionized the field. And 17 others, each chosen for their unique perspective and potential. Tae-1 found himself enjoying teaching more than he expected. He showed students how to approach problems systematically, how to fail safely and learn from mistakes, how to think like an engineer, breaking down impossible tasks into manageable pieces. G1 taught them about the Vrillen, about their culture and philosophy, about the millions of species that had risen and fallen in the galaxy's long history. She made them understand that humanity was just one small voice in a much larger conversation. Together, they taught the students about the connection, about how 2 minds working in harmony could achieve what neither could alone. They never mentioned their own lingering bond. That remained private. The months passed quickly. The Krev test grew closer. 6 months before the deadline, G1 found Taewon in the archive chamber late at night. He was studying a Vrillen file about consciousness transfer. Can't sleep? She asked, thinking about the test. What if we're not ready? We won't be. Not completely. She sat beside him. But that's not the point. The Vrillen didn't expect perfection. They expected effort, growth, the willingness to try. Our students are good, Taewon admitted. Better than I expected. But 20 people isn't enough to change a whole species. It's a start. Seeds grow into forests, given time. They sat in comfortable silence. Through their connection, Taewon felt Ji-won's contentment. She was happy here. Despite everything that had happened to her, despite the trauma and loss, she had found peace. Do you ever regret it? He asked. Staying here instead of accepting the fame and glory? No. Do you? He thought about it honestly. No. For the first time since Mars, I feel like I'm doing something that matters. Not just fixing machines or following orders, but actually helping people become better versions of themselves. That's all the Vrillon wanted. For species to grow. To become better. She smiled. I think they would be proud of what we're building. The day of the Krev test arrived with little warning. The massive insectoid ship appeared in the system, broadcasting a simple message. Humanity's evaluation begins now. A delegation of Krev arrived at the station. Not just inspectors this time, but what appeared to be scholars and officials. They observed classes. They interviewed students. They examined the Academy's philosophy and methods. They asked Taewon about Mars, about the accident and his guilt. He answered honestly, holding nothing back. The Krev listened without judgment. They asked Ji-won about her team, about Park's betrayal and her time in stasis. She told them everything, including how it had changed her. Then they asked the students to demonstrate what they had learned. The test wasn't what anyone expected. There were no battles, no displays of technological prowess. Instead, the Krev presented a series of ethical dilemmas. Situations where there was no clear right answer. Cases where any choice would cause harm. The students worked together, debating and discussing. They didn't always agree. Sometimes they argued, but they listened to each other. They considered perspectives beyond their own. They tried to find solutions that minimized harm and maximized good. The Krev watched it all with unreadable, alien eyes. At the end of 3 days, the lead Krev scholar spoke to the assembled academy. Humanity is young, imperfect. You make mistakes. You act selfishly. You cause harm through ignorance and sometimes through malice. A pause. But you also learn. You grow. You show remarkable capacity for empathy and cooperation when you choose to. These traits are rare among spacefaring species. Another pause, longer this time. The test is passed. Humanity is granted full status in the galactic community. Access to the Vrillon archives will remain unrestricted. However, everyone held their breath. 50 standard cycles from now, the exotic radiation will reach this region. Many species will not survive. The galactic community offers no protection. Each species must prepare itself. The Vrillon left their knowledge to help you. Use it well. The Krev departed. The system filled with celebration broadcasts from Earth. Humanity had passed. They were part of something larger now, but Taewon felt the weight of the warning. 50 years. 1 human lifetime. That's all they had to prepare for a catastrophe that could wipe out civilization. Ji-won felt his worry through their connection. She took his hand. We'll be ready, she said.